Hey, good morning, everyone. This is T. West with AfroSynergy News. Now, Netanyahu has been spreading lies that his regime is not starving the Palestinians in Gaza. This is a bold-faced lie, but Netanyahu does that. He lies with impunity. And there are many Christian Zionists right here in the United States of America who supports and embraces the lies that Netanyahu and his clan often tells. They're killing a massive number of Palestinians in Gaza, but not only in Gaza, but they're killing also Palestinians in the West Bank. The intent is to take all of the land. That is their intent. And in fact, it is a stated intent of Netanyahu's clan. And they're doing that. They're doing it with the help of the United States government. Now, we have France, for example. Right now, France is saying that they are prepared to recognize the Palestinian state. Russia and many other countries already recognize the Palestinian state. The United States does not recognize the Palestinian state. And in the meantime, Netanyahu and his clan are taking more and more of the West Bank, more and more of Gaza. They're committing genocidal crimes. This did not just begin, but it's been happening for decades. The Ashkenazim, who are European, Germanic people, they pretend that they are the Jewish people. Even the so-called Hebrew language that they speak is not authentic Hebrew. Many, many decades ago, they undertook the effort of learning Hebrew. And this is the version that they have, the one that Netanyahu and his clan speak. But what happened is that Netanyahu, he asked for a call. He made a call to the White House, to Donald Trump. And Netanyahu wanted to talk about Gaza. Netanyahu was lying as he was speaking to Trump, saying that the Israelis are helping the Palestinians in Gaza. The Israelis are feeding the Palestinians in Gaza. Nah, they're not feeding them. They're starving them. Already, we've had more than 1,400 people who were out looking for food, who were killed, slaughtered by the Israeli Defense Force. The same Israeli Defense Force who, in 2010, in Haiti, when you had that massive earthquake there, that same IDF force was harvesting organs in Haiti following that earthquake, harvesting the organs of the suffering people in Haiti. This is the type of animal that we're dealing with. This is what we're dealing with. So we have the Palestinian people who are starving there in Gaza. Some of you may say, well, why does that concern me? What does that have to do with me? It has a lot to do with you. As J. Edgar Hoover said in the COINTEL program, we must stop the Negro from uniting with his Palestinian brothers. COINTELPRO, it is still in operation. So Netanyahu is lying to Trump in this phone call that Netanyahu made to Trump. So what does Trump do? Trump yelled at Netanyahu and told him that is not the case. The Palestinian people are being starved. Starved by who? Starved by the Israeli regime. This is what Donald Trump told Netanyahu, yelling at him. Now, does that sound like someone who is totally controlled by Netanyahu and his clan? No, it is not. So, to the American people, to especially the Christian Zionists, you have been holding on to the skirt of the wrong baby. The wrong baby, the false Jews, the ones that are talked about in Revelation 2:9, Revelation 3:9, where it says, I know your works, I know your tribulations, and I know your poverty. Talking about the authentic people of the book. And I know the blasphemy of those who say that they are Jews, but they are not, but they are of the synagogue of Satan. And it goes on to say, behold, I will make them come and fall down at your feet and let them know I have loved you. The authentic people. These clansmen of Netanyahu's group, they are not who they say they are. They are the worst of the worst. And we're seeing it in operation. We're seeing for the last 2 years what they have done and are doing to the Palestinian people in Gaza. As I said, not only in Gaza, but also in the West Bank. And the American government is the biggest supporter of this. Now, let me talk a little history here briefly before I close this down. During the apartheid era of South Africa, nations around the world boycotted apartheid South Africa. The last two nations to boycott, forced to boycott apartheid South Africa, was the United States, and the very last one was the Zionist state of Israel. They backed apartheid South Africa until the very end. This is a behavior that is innate within that group, within that regime. This is what they do. And it is time for you so-called Christian Zionists to wake up. And when I say Christian Zionists, I'm not talking about just white people. There are a lot of black folks out there who are Christian Zionists. There are a lot of Africans who are Christian Zionists. It's time for you to wake up and know the truth. And once you know the truth, you act upon the truth. You make decisions and moves that reflects that you have learned the truth. And the truth is, they are not who they say they are. They being Netanyahu and his clan. They're not who they say they are. They are very much the opposite of who they say they are. And you need to drop your support of them. You know, Christ, Yeshua, he said, call no man rabbi and call no man father. Now, you call your biological dad father. That's fine. He wasn't talking about that, talking about Yeshua, Christ. Christ was not talking about that. He was telling you through whom the conspiracy would come. These two, the conspiracy would come. It would come through those who call their religious leader rabbi, which means master. It would come through those who call their religious leader papa, pope, father. That is who the conspiracy against you would come. And that's what we see. We see this conspiracy that comes from the false Jews and within Catholicism. We see this. Now, here's one thing about Catholicism. Most Catholics, the overwhelming majority of Catholics, do not support what we see happening in Gaza. It is the Protestants, primarily the Christian Zionists, Protestants meaning they protested. There was a schism in Catholicism and it created the Protestant group or groups. It is that group, among members of that group, and that is changing and that is good, members of that group who supports the Zionist state of Israel, because they have been bamboozled, tricked, and lied to and made to believe that these people are God's chosen people. And that is the furthest you can get to a lie. That is the biggest lie. They are not who they say they are. And it is time in this 21st century, in the age of knowledge, for people to stop being so doggone ignorant. There's no excuse for it. The truth is out there. All you have to do is look for it. And some of it drops right in your lap. And you need to accept it when you see it and when you hear the truth. So once again, Netanyahu called Donald Trump, talking about this situation in Gaza. Netanyahu lied to Trump and said that his government is providing food for the Palestinians in Gaza. That's a lie. They are withholding food. Palestinians are starving in Gaza. And Trump yelled at Netanyahu and told him that what he's saying is not the case. It is not the truth. It is a lie. And let me remind you all that when Trump called for a ceasefire between Iran and the Zionist apartheid state of Israel, Netanyahu decided that he was going to try to get in the last strike upon Iran. He had F-35s dispatched and flying towards Tehran to drop bombs and missiles. And Donald Trump told Netanyahu, turn those F-35s the F around. Now, does that sound like someone who is under the control totally of Netanyahu and his clan? No, he isn't. And I've said before, both Netanyahu and Trump are both narcissists. But Trump says and believes that Netanyahu answers to him. This is what Trump believes. Trump says there can only be one king. And it can't not be Netanyahu. It's going to be me, the super narcissist. So when we see this with Netanyahu, we see this attitude of I am bigger than you. I am supreme. When we hear former prime ministers, Ariel Sharon of the state of Israel, the Jews control America. When we hear Ehud Olmert, another prime minister, George W. Bush does what I tell him to do. And Benjamin Netanyahu saying, we control the American Congress. That is a superiority complex. That is a God complex. They're saying that they control your leaders. Some have said that the reason why Donald Trump has not released the list, the Epstein list, is because it would indict Donald Trump himself. That's not the reason why, because if that was the case, listen, if that was the case, Joe Biden, in his 4 years in office of having all of that information, Joe Biden would have released it. Joe Biden threw the kitchen sink at Trump. Joe Biden administration had people trying to assassinate Trump. So, but the real reason why that list has not been released is because it was, and it is, the Israeli government, the Mossad, who controlled Jeffrey Epstein and blackmail to this day members of the American Congress. Blackmail. Yes. You wonder, how can someone so small in number control the American government, control American leaders? I just told you how. Blackmail. They have information on you. They listen in on phone calls. Even right now, They tap phones. My phone is not immune from that. I know that. But I also know that what I have is more powerful than what they have. So I don't fear them. They do fear me. And they fear some of you. If you have the power of the truth and if you are not afraid to speak the truth. So, this is an interesting time that we're living in. Very interesting time. We're seeing the convergence of many things coming together. We're seeing it, we're witnessing it. So the question is, when you hear the truth, will you accept the truth? Will you promote the truth? That is the question. So, with Netanyahu, with Trump, we're seeing a war going on between the two. Yeah, a war. And then even with many of the people within the MAGA group, they're rebelling against Trump because Trump is so much in bed with Netanyahu and his clan. And they don't like it, and I do not blame them. They don't like it. You're hearing Candace Owens. Candace Owens is often attacking the Zionist apartheid regime. Often. And that's a good thing. As I've said before, I am happy to see the young lady in her growth, in knowledge. That is good. I'm not dealing with, and I won't deal with what she had to say in the past, in her youthful time. You know, when I was a child, I did the things of a child, but when I became grown, an adult, I started thinking and doing the things that adults do. So you have to allow room for people to grow. That's all I wanted to say this morning. I appreciate each one of you who joined in this program. So, but before I go, Gabriel, how you doing, my brother? Gabriel says that when Trump stopped kissing up to this Netanyahu, then he will get my respect again. And that's fine. That's fine. But we need to see a little deeper. A little deeper. Not all is as it appears. Not all. This is T. West with Afro Synergy News.